In what ended up being his swan song, Khabib showed us that he is the most dominant athlete to ever set foot in the octagon. We're talking about that and the rest of the 254 card right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
Boy, oh boy, Nick, what a amazing fight card we just watched.
Wow. Wow is the only word that's coming out of my mouth on that one. That was just incredible.
Yeah, no question about it. You know, going into this fight with Khabib versus Gaethje, there were so many. Every time Khabib steps in there, you have people saying, well, this is a different style that may give him trouble here, or he may have problems with a certain look there. Justin Gaethje was no different. Justin Gaethje was a very good wrestler, an All-American wrestler, in fact, and also an excellent boxer, as he showed against Tony Ferguson. And we were wondering, is Khabib going to have a problem getting Gaethje on the ground? Is he going to have a problem if Justin can keep a good boxing distance and range? And he just proved that there really is no style and no remedy to beating him. He's just simply the most dominant fighter that the UFC's ever seen.
Yeah, and you know, that's one thing he's been asking to be given the title of, is most dominant. But if you go back, it's a very easy thing to look at. He has the most 10-8 rounds of anybody that's ever fought in the UFC. And then all the fights beforehand were also domination. So yes, he is legitimately the most dominant fighter of all time, and 100% deserves that pound-for-pound number one spot that everybody, if you go to Twitter and all the people, all the fighters, you know, everybody in the community was tweeting about after the fight, saying he's absolutely pound-for-pound number one, you know, the greatest of all time, the GOAT, all of that stuff. He deserves every bit of that and then some. And you know what? He did clear out the division. You know, what's he going to do? Wait around for the winner of Dustin Conner? He beat both of them. You know, I don't think that Tony Ferguson versus Khabib was just meant to happen in this lifetime. Yeah. Justin Gaethje was the next guy, the one guy that in the division seemed to have the right skill set and tools to bring into a fight with Khabib to make it competitive, and we saw what just happened right there. So
yeah, absolutely. And my question as to whether, you know, I needed to see Kukui versus Khabib was answered tonight. Against how he did in the performance against Justin Gaethje. You know, obviously MMA math never works exactly, but I think I saw enough out of the performance that Khabib did tonight to say that, listen, there's nobody that's competing in the 155 division right now. There's no up-and-comers that everybody's excited and talking about in that division that we say, that might be the guy to beat him. There's just simply nothing. He left no shadow of a doubt. He is the best 155er of all time. He's got to be in GOAT conversations at minimum. The only thing that could hold him back from being in GOAT conversations would be the fact that he just stayed in one division. But I think that speaks a bit to his discipline and how he said, this is my division and I'm going to own it. And every time somebody steps up and people begin to think that maybe I can falter, maybe this style can beat me, I'm going to prove them wrong. And he did it, and he did it 29 times in a row, perfectly, without a blemish. You could argue that he lost a round in his whole career, one round.
Yeah, and you know, the champ thing is a new phenomenon. For the longest time, the UFC always kept people in their divisions, and you'd see these long range like Khabib had, like Anderson Silva, like George St. Pierre, and that's just the way the sport went. They had a star in Conor McGregor that decided they were gonna, you know, try some new things with, and it ended up working for him. But you know, the 155 to 170 jump is a massive jump, not just in weight, but the body type of a 170er is just totally different than the body type of a 155er. You know, 155 is about as big as you can possibly be in a small frame.
Right.
And the 170 guys are big-bodied guys. You see them on the street and you go, oh, that's a big guy, 6'1", 6'2", probably weighs 200 pounds when he wakes up in the morning. And
they're heavyweights with very low body fat percentages.
Right. So they're just built differently. And I think to ask Khabib to jump to 170 after he's doing so much, staying active, staying on top at 155, which is also, by the way, the hardest division in the entire sport. And not just in the UFC, but 155 in the UFC is 100% the most stacked division in the entire sport. And he kind of showed that there's nobody that can hang with him around there.
No doubt. Not even close. And I must admit that when he first came into the scene, after he got signed by the UFC, he was a slow build for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't a very big fan of his in the beginning. I thought his style would probably not translate to being something that exciting. I was wrong there. I thought that, he had those couple of weight cut issues where he missed weight. I thought maybe discipline was an issue. He proved that he's one of the most disciplined people to ever do it. And then you just can't help but mention his conviction as a person and the relationship with his late father, who passed away, unfortunately, before this match due to COVID complications. I got to take him at his word that I wasn't hot on him retiring, whether it be at the end of this fight or if the GSP fight materialized. After that, I thought he would fight probably another couple of years. After what I heard him say in the post-fight speech and how he promised his mother that this was his last fight, she didn't even want him to do it. He's got nothing left to prove. I absolutely take him at his word. I think that we have seen Khabib Nurmagomedov for the last time, at least as a fighter in the octagon. I don't think that we've seen him for the last time involved in MMA, especially the UFC, training young Dagestani fighters. He may even assume the role that his father played in Dagestan. But as far as competing and fighting in the UFC, I went from being somebody who was not so hot on him to having the utmost respect for him after that performance tonight. Blown away. It was emotional. It was everything it's everything you could dream of if you're an MMA fan. It's an inspiring story. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and his dad, rest in peace to his father. He and his son set out to become 30-0. That was their goal that they wanted. And you can't expect him to continue without his father. They're such a tight bond, tight-knit family, and not just his father not only did so much for him, but for everybody, all the young fighters in Dagestan, and then it led on into AKA. He became like a father figure for the guys over there. Everybody that you could possibly think of, he's touched in the MMA community. And the goal was 30-0. 29-0 is a great stopping point, because I feel like it's just too emotionally draining for Khabib to have to go through all that again without his father. And, it's just a lot to ask. And he's a man of his word. He's a family man. And when you set out to do something with your family and then for reasons that you have no control over, you can't do those, then, you have to look at what's best for you as a person. And I think, you saw how he broke down in the octagon. That was just as raw. It makes you want to cry when you see him break down like that, and just he's sobbing because his father's not there to see what they have done since the time he was a baby, an infant, and they've grown all this way. And this fight, his father would have been able to attend because it was in Abu Dhabi. Just to see what he's done for the sport, what he's done, what his father's done for the sport, what they've done as a team is just it's incredible. And I think that it's one of the most impactful things that the MMA community has ever seen.
Yeah, this is a feel-good story. And just as a bit of a side note, I'm so impressed by the great relationship that his father had with Javier Mendez throughout his whole career. Because you see a lot of times in boxing and in MMA, you can get too many chefs in the kitchen. You got too many people giving opinions, and sometimes those opinions are conflicting. I think that the relationship between the late Nurmagomedov Sr. and Javier Mendez is about as good a relationship between two coaches as you could possibly get. Javier shows Sr. the absolute most respect when you saw them in Abu Dhabi when he fought Dustin Poirier. He allowed him to train all of his fighters and run his practice, and he really just hats off to Javier Mendez for being such an amazing coach and checking his ego at the door to help create the most dominant fighter that the UFC's ever seen. Yeah,
and a lot of time fighters' parents are lacking in knowledge, but they definitely have enthusiasm, and they want to do as much for their fighter as they can, their child. But a lot of times that'll get in the way, and it tends to rub coaches the wrong way. It tends
more
to rub
times
teams
than not.
Yeah, it rubs teams the wrong way, and then there becomes like this animosity between the father and the son, or the coach and the son, or however it may go. Teofimo Lopez is a great example. That's a sort of a similar situation, but his father got in the way instead of help facilitate, and breed success. So, Javier Mendez, he orchestrated all of that perfectly. I'm sure because MMA is such a wide range sport that there's so many different ins and outs of that, he trusted that Khabib's father knew what he didn't know, and he knew what Khabib's father didn't know, and they were ultimately just putting it all into Khabib to make him the best athlete that they could possibly make.
Absolutely. I mean, you never know the greatness of something while with some exception. You know when something has the potential to be great, or will probably look back at this, whatever it is, whether it's the career of Tom Brady or Michael Phelps, or when you talk about any dominant athlete, this is one of those stories where when you watch the ESPN 30 for 30 on Khabib, which I'm sure will come out in the next 5 years or so, you're really going to realize that we were witnessing right now true greatness. Right. And in a lot of aspects, you're witnessing excellence inside the octagon, excellence outside of the octagon. You're witnessing a family man who was absolutely driven by the dream of him and his father, much more so than financial gain. It's just an incredible story, and I just can't say enough about how impactful I think that performance was, and even more so the retirement speech thereafter. He was a man on a mission. And in the pre-fight predictions, I said, look, I just don't think with everything that's going on inside of him that there's any way that somebody's going to get in the octagon and beat him. And you could just see he had all of that stuff built up inside of him. He was able to stay composed, get the job done, but it ate him up. You could see as soon as he won, as soon as he let go of Justin Gaethje, he just broke down. And I think, if you want your child to look up to somebody in this world, it's somebody like Khabib. No doubt.
There's a lot of great people out there that young folks and even older folks consider to be their heroes. Khabib's definitely up there for aspiring fighters, people that feel like the world's against them at some times, and Khabib's a perfect role model for those people.
No doubt. And so just quickly, we'll move into the fight itself.
Yeah.
And I think we do have to give Justin Gaethje a lot of credit here. I mean, Justin Gaethje did what he could do.
Yeah, well, right off the bat. A couple of times, Khabib was eager to get his hands on him and put him on the ground, do a little wrestling. And the first time that he grabbed a hold of him, Justin Gaethje looked like a dog who did not want to get grabbed. Yeah,
absolutely.
He was flailing around and got away. And I was just like, oh, this is exactly what you need to stop Khabib from taking you down. Largely, the first round was a striking match, and Khabib did outstrike him. But like you said, Justin landed a lot of good shots, more than most people land on Khabib. And I think that he was on to something in that first round. I think the pressure kind of got to him. He did get a little bit tired going into the second round, which speaks a lot about how dominant Khabib is.
Right. Well, when you think about Justin Gaethje and how he fought Tony Ferguson is the cardio machine.
Right.
And Justin Gaethje was the fresher fighter at the end of that fight.
Yeah.
So if Khabib can wear you out after you just got done with a war and having a war with Tony Ferguson, that shows you what type of exhaustion that forward pressure puts on you. And I think one of the most underrated aspects of Khabib's game is his chin.
Yeah.
Khabib can take a massive shot. I mean, Justin Gaethje has put people down with single shots. He's one of those fighters in the division.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor, Edson Barbosa used to be in the division, could take you out with one shot, usually a kick. Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, all those people can take you out with one shot. All those people fought Khabib, and all of them put shots on him, and none of them took him out.
Yeah.
He's got an incredible chin. He's just got this forward pressure. He just will not be stopped. I mean, you're talking about an all-American wrestler that got taken down 2 times. The first time was the end of the first round. You had the armbar attempt, which, who knows if Khabib had a little bit more time to work that armbar, maybe he could have shifted his hips and finished it. Didn't matter. He got the triangle, an absolutely beautiful triangle. Justin was tapping within seconds and ultimately ended up going unconscious because the ref didn't quite see the first tap. Unbelievable.
Yeah, flawless victory. And, I think there's not a jiu-jitsu practitioner or black belt out there that would say that armbar or that triangle choke was anything less than masterful.
Yep.
I mean, people give Khabib credit for being the ground and pound, the smash master, all of these things. But, he's pulled some crazy submissions in his day, and I think that he might have some of the best submission grappling as well as striking grappling and just positional control in the entire UFC.
Absolutely. And when you think about how he took Justin down the second time in the second round, he took him down, he passed his legs, he got to mount like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like an absolute it would be like a purple belt doing it on a new white belt. He just walked step 1, step 2, step 3. Now I'm in mount. Foot behind the head, grab the back of the neck, pull him up, lock the triangle. As soon as Justin stood up to try to posture out of the triangle, you saw Khabib reach under with his hand and hook the leg, bring him back down, break his posture, and finish it by making him unconscious. I mean, it was unbelievable, the skill. We all know he's the best ground and pounder that there is.
Right.
But his jiu-jitsu proficiency tonight was something that really was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see people throw up submissions quite that easily, especially in a title fight against an interim champion. I mean, Justin Gaethje is an All-American interim champion on a crazy win streak, doing all these amazing things, and to just cinch it up like that. And I mean, it was flawless. It was so simple. It looked like he was, like you said, a white belt going up against a black belt, and Justin Gaethje. One of those things that people say all the time, and it, everybody knows it. If you don't use it, you lose it. He doesn't use his wrestling. He might use it in the practice room, but I don't think that's his primary focus. And I think that if you're not doing it all the time, you're losing some of it. And Khabib clearly does those type of maneuvers, those type of mechanics, and works on those techniques on a daily basis. And that's why he's so proficient at them.
Absolutely. So, I mean, congratulations to Khabib. What a career.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a long time before we see somebody that dominant in a division. Yeah. And he's in my GOAT conversation.
Without
a doubt. I don't care that he never fought anywhere else. I think the sheer fact that he had to sacrifice and bust his ass to make 155 all those times shows discipline enough that, hey, this is my division and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, and the GOAT conversation largely has to do with, let's just narrow it down to the few that it is: Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, John Jones, Khabib. Those are the ones that you think of most of the time.
Mighty Mouse was in there for a little while, but he's gone now. He's in another organization.
But to my point, Anderson Silva, before everybody really knew what they were doing in the striking realm, and you had guys who were really good strikers that seriously lacked grappling. You had guys who were really good grapplers, seriously lacked striking. Same sort of situation with GSP. GSP was just a little bit ahead of his time. Mighty Mouse had no depth in that division, so he was just molly-whopping everybody. Right. Khabib did it in the most difficult time of mixed martial arts, the most difficult division, and the most difficult promotion. I don't see how, and John Jones, of course, he's run through it, but on the same note,
155 was much more competitive than light heavyweight for all those years, I will say.
Yeah, and it was all recent. Look at the names that Khabib's taken out most recently. Nothing against John Jones' last few opponents, because there are some new names out there, and there's some people that have given him some goes, but he was this young next-level fighter fighting a bunch of older guys. And I just think that while very impressive, it wasn't quite as impressive as Khabib. If you had to give me one chance, one name who I'm putting down as the GOAT right now, it's Khabib.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. So moving into the co-main event, and before we do that, I must say that our predictions, as usual, were pretty good tonight.
Yeah.
Guys, if you bet with the Barnhill brothers, you probably made money, and we'll link to our predictions video in the description here. But
let's start keeping tallies, because I want to keep a record, just like a fighter's record, wins and losses. Because
you were 5-1 on the main card, I was 4-2.
Wow, that was fantastic. And we picked some of those by the round. Even by the way what happened.
The 5-1 and 4-2 just represents wins to losses,
right?
But a lot of those wins were actually we picked the round and picked the type of finish, or if there would be a finish,
right?
But ironically, we're moving now into the one that we both got wrong.
Yes,
this was Jared Canonnier. I was super hot on Jared Canonnier taking out Bobby Knuckles in this one. I don't really know why now looking back I predicted that, because Whittaker hasn't lost a fight since 2004 to anybody not named Israel Adesanya.
Wow.
So, to pick against him was against my better judgment. But I thought that Canonnier had it in him. I thought he was a man on a mission and he's going to get it done. What ended up being the case is he looked like he was just about a half step behind Robert Whittaker and just not quite technically as good.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot to be said for momentum, confidence, those types of streaks, and Cannoneer had all of that going for him where Robert Whittaker didn't. He had taken a bit of a time off. Some things weren't going his way. He lost to Izzy Adesanya in horrible fashion, and if you were betting on all the things that Cannoneer had going for him versus all the things that were going wrong for Whittaker, it made sense to go with Cannoneer. But the Robert Whittaker we saw in there this evening, I was going to say
this
tonight.
Afternoon.
Yeah,
it's weird because it's an afternoon fight.
Waking up to fights is something I'll never get bored of. But the one we saw in there with Jared Cannonier might have been the best Robert Whittaker we've ever seen, and could quite possibly be the best option for Izzy Adesanya next. And I know that we saw that recently. We don't really want to see it again because we know how it went down, and there's just other matchups that are fun. But I don't know if there's people in the 185 division that are just going to walk past Robert Whittaker, because he looked so sharp, so fast. He was moving. A lot of times people go, oh, 135ers, 145ers, they're so fun to watch because they're so fast. Robert Whittaker looked as fast as some of those guys tonight. He was in and out, and Cannoneer is a quick guy as well. He was missing by a mile on some of those shots.
He really was. And man, is he so tough. He really did such a good job of recovering there in the second when I thought they were going to stop the fight. But
we were even yelling, stop the fight.
Yeah, but Robert Whittaker is noticeably better than when he fought Izzy. And, he's come back and he's gotten back in his stride. He took some time off. He said he had to get his head right, get himself back, feeling good again. He had those issues, the card in Australia that he had to pull from last minute. He had I think it was the gastrointestinal issues and things like that. So he said he's got kind of put that all behind him now. He's enjoying fighting again. He's enjoying being in the grind again. This Robert Whittaker was much, much better than the Robert Whittaker that we saw against Izzy, and even better than the Robert Whittaker we saw very recently against Darren Till. This is the best we've seen of him yet. And, it is kind of hard to say, let's take the guy who, now that Khabib is gone, the guy who's arguably the biggest name or biggest draw in the sport, Israel Adesanya, unless Conor's fighting, and throw him in there with a guy he already knocked out in the second round. A bit of a tough sell, but I think if you're going to make that sell, Robert Whittaker is the guy you do it on.
Yeah, and let's just play hypotheticals. What if Izzy goes up to 205 like they've been kind of hinting at? It kind of looks like there's a collision course between him and John Jones that's inevitable, but they might send him towards Jan Blachowicz before that, and just some things like that. I do believe that if Izzy's not in the way of Robert Whittaker becomes the champion of 185 again at some point in his career.
I think either way, Robert Whittaker becomes the champion.
He's so
at
young.
185. He's only 27 years old. So
ridiculous.
Izzy is gonna, he's gonna be looking for those mega fights really soon, and he's gonna be one of those guys that he kind of transcends a little bit a division, or transcends. The sport in a certain way.
He could clear out the 185 division.
Right. And so then he kind of is interested in the fun fights. It's is there anybody at 205 that's interesting that I could go up there and try to take the belt from? Where's John Jones?
Right.
Stuff like that. So I think either way, we see the 185 strap put back around Robert Whittaker's waist at some point before he retires. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I definitely see that same thing happening. And, we were talking about the GOATs, and I think Khabib's right there. Izzy Adesanya's record is creeping up to that 30-0 range, and he's got a ways to go, and especially because he's the champion and only has tough fights from here on out, it's going to be hard to get another 10 wins in a row. But if anybody can do it, it might be Izzy. And I think what would cement Izzy as the GOAT is if he runs through 185 a couple more times, gets the people out of there that people still want to see him in there against, and then he goes to 205. There's a good chance he wipes out that division. The only fighter to wipe out two divisions completely And then you've got another one added to the GOAT conversation.
Such a fun time to be an MMA fan.
How lucky are we? We get all of the memories and history that Conor McGregor has created. Today we saw history. We saw the pound for pound #1 fighter Khabib literally earn his GOAT status amongst the MMA community. We've seen so much. Israel Adesanya emerge as an absolute star. Khamzat Chimaev do some unprecedented things. I just think we're very lucky as MMA fans.
And I'll mention all of this happened during a global pandemic. Yeah. Shout out to the UFC for being able to entertain us when we really most needed it.
Yeah,
what a great set of storylines that have come out in the last 5 months.
Yeah, and you know what's super cool is they ran the promotion for Etihad Stadium or arena that they're building out there in Abu Dhabi. Everybody, when we heard about Fight Island and we found out it was in Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, was like, oh my God, I'd love to go there. It sucks that they're not having fans because fans would really love that experience type of thing. I think when they put this 18,000 person stadium in and we allow fans again and people are allowed to enjoy live events, that is going to be such a destination for fight fans. And the UFC is going to be going there multiple times a year. And it really helps expand the UFC globally even more than they already are.
Most definitely. And I didn't even know about Yas Island before all of this. And now it's like, man, we got to go there.
Yeah, sure. I heard about a few things in Abu Dhabi, but I couldn't tell you that there was a specific island where all of this cool stuff was. Now we kind of know about it. Everybody wants to go to Abu Dhabi at some point in their life. And I think if there's a stacked card, then we might have to make an exception.
Absolutely. So moving on now, Walt Harris, Alexander Volkov, good heavyweight clash of the Titans there.
Yeah.
And boy, does Volkov look better every time we see him.
Yeah, not only in the cage, but the physical appearance. That back tattoo was something special.
Yes, as a couple of guys that know their tattoos.
That samurai
that's
piece
a great
is
samurai.
Bad to the bone. It looks super cool there in the cage, and it's every bit of a full back piece. So I think that he had a performance that matched his tattoo. Fantastic.
Yeah, most definitely. And you picked this one right. This was the one. This was the one on the card where we differed.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was kind of back and forth, and I think more the fan in me just picked Walt Harris than anything. It's so hard, with all that's happened to him. Mm-hmm. You talk about the tragedy of Khabib losing his father, but Walt Harris's stepdaughter was murdered. So and he's such a good person, such a nice guy. The fact that he has the fortitude to keep going and just got to respect him. How could you not be a fan of his? And so, I was cheering for Walt. Not that I don't like Volkov. I think he's a great fighter. In fact, I think that Volkov, after tonight's performance, I'd be surprised that if some point in the next 4 years we don't see him with a UFC title around his waist.
Yeah, he's, I think they said 32 years old, very young for the heavyweight division, moves very well, 6'7", which is something that I always forget about. I know he's a tall guy. For some reason, I always think he's a taller, skinny guy, but he's 6'7" and's got a full body. The guy is not thin.
No.
And, he's got those long muscles. He's very rangy. He's good at using his distance. And I think that you're spot on with that. I think that a couple of these guys move around in the top 5, and he's going to wind up right there in title contention very soon.
I think he would already be in title contention if he hadn't completely screwed the pooch in the last 10 seconds against Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
If he had just run around the octagon for 10 seconds, Derek Lewis, and Derek Lewis is H-Town.
That's our guy.
I'm a major fan, so I'm glad he didn't do that. But, nonetheless, he had that fight in the bag.
Yeah.
But this was a good. Walt threw his heavy. Walt's going to throw his heavy shots. He's going to come and try to knock you out and take your head off. Volkov, I think, managed it very well. I think he stayed very calm under fire, looked for his shots, picked his shots. He looks like a very composed striker. I'm very impressed with his performance, and he seems to be on the right track, and he's improving every time.
Yeah, he stays very composed in there. He's very crisp with his striking. He doesn't overdo it, and that's why he didn't get tired in the second round like Walt Harris did. He showed up. He did just enough in the first round, which was a lot, but he never overshot shots or overthrew punches or anything like that. he did exactly what he needed to do. It definitely put Walt Harris's cardio, to the test. And round 2, he was able to really put the gas on him, and I guess it was just too much to handle for Walt Harris. Like you said, Walt Harris is such a stand-up guy. I hated betting against him, but when we're calling fights, I have to just be as brutally honest with the X's and O's as I can be. And I thought that Volkov was a tough matchup for him.
Yeah, it definitely proved to be. And that body kick was really impressive. I don't know if I still am not sure if he broke a rib or if that was just a well-placed liver kick and it kind of Walt was already at the end of the ropes. But I mean, what a great!
It was like an Anderson Silva kick to the torso.
It was almost like that kick he landed on Vitor Belfort, except it didn't go quite as high.
Yeah. I mean, that one looks like it's going to be very painful to live with for the next few weeks for Walt Harris. But
I know it's been a tough 2 fights in a row for Walt now, but. I just still have high hopes for him. I'm such a fan. Maybe it's just the fan in me, but I think that Walt can continue to work and continue to grow.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever becomes champ, honestly, if I'm just being brutally honest, but I think he's an exciting fighter that can hang around in the top 10, possibly top 5 for another few years.
Yeah. And if he keeps doing his thing, you never know. Stranger things have definitely happened, and a man on a mission is hard to beat, and I think that he's got all the fire to make something great happen. He's just got to get back on the winning track.
Absolutely. And so now we're on to H-Town's own Lauren Murphy.
Yeah.
So I saw Bob Perez posted that she is now 4-0 since moving to Houston.
Wow.
So, perfect record now that she's at Main Street Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And shout out to her. She looked really good. Very much a stay-at-home striker.
Yeah.
She's very technical. She's not the fastest striker in the world, but she's got very good technique. She understands when she's in range, when she's out of range.
Yeah.
She's good at avoiding big shots, and she's good at keeping the pressure on with that very traditional sort of Muay Thai cadence. And I thought she ended up finishing it with a rear naked choke, I believe, but awesome performance by her as well.
Yeah, and we have to give some credit to her opponent. Stepped in on short notice, UFC debut, never been in there. Now go ahead and get in with the number 4 ranked opponent, fighter in the world. The girl does it and completely seized the moment. You can't really ask for a girl to make her debut against the number 4 fighter in the world and win, but she showed a lot of promise. I guarantee she gets some more fights in the UFC, and I think she might pose some problems for people at 125. I believe she's probably built more for 115.
I agree.
And she was in there with somebody who was significantly stronger than her in Lauren Murphy. But I was very impressed, and I'm drawing a blank on her name because she's
Lilia was her first name.
Lilia,
I think. Yeah, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but
great performance, great debut. She should be very proud of herself. The first round, she looked so fluid. She strikes better than a lot of females in the UFC, and I think with a full camp, maybe drop down to 115, we could see somebody that's exciting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, when we did our predictions video, we also both picked Lauren Murphy to win.
I said finish by statement, so that was another one I got down.
There you
right.
go. I called decision on that one, but Lauren Murphy nonetheless. But
we're still cleaning up, guys, so just bet with us on the wins.
You called finish, and finish it was. But what I was saying about the opponent is she had some a beginning of the fight. I said in the predictions video, rather, this is going to be a sure money fight. It's minus 240 if you want to make a modest return on your investment. I think this would be a good one to bet on. And then I started to get a little nervous at the end of that first round. I was like, whoa, this might be a little tougher than I thought for Lauren Murphy, because I thought she'd be a much bigger favorite than minus 240. Turns out the odds makers saw something in this young Lilia that
they knew something about this French girl that we didn't know about.
Yeah, and great performance. And I agree with you. She did look much smaller in there, and I do think with a proper fight camp and weight cut, 115 is her division. And I hope that, and history says that when you do things like step in on short notice to fight somebody who's literally in a title eliminator, Dana White's gonna reward you with a fight contract. So I think she's gonna get one, and rightfully so.
Yeah, she definitely earned it.
So starting off the card, we had Magomed versus Cutelaba in the clearly the most difficult name to pronounce fight of the night award goes to them.
Yeah, for sure.
This was the rematch. This was the fight that everybody remembers was the 30-second rope-a-dope nonsense that Cutelaba did in the first fight, and then it was obviously stopped because the referee thought that he was going out on his feet. I didn't see a whole lot of controversy there. Most people disagreed with me. Most people thought that it was a bad stoppage. But, if anytime you're going to rope-a-dope, you better have your opponent well beat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All this did was just prove that I was right the first time. The correct fighter that got his hand raised the first time got his hand raised again. Very patient, waited. And to me, this one was almost like it reminded me of Fabricio Verdum versus Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title, when Fabricio was kind of chasing Stipe around the cage, and Stipe landed that hook and then boom, knockout shot, and finished it with some well-placed shots on the ground. Cutelaba, I think he's a very exciting fighter. He's got a lot of power, but if I'm going to criticize him anywhere, he doesn't have, in my opinion, very good octagon control, because he's the one in the middle establishing sort of the come forward style. The Russian fighter was sort of backing up and picking his shots here and there and kind of picking him apart. But at that one point, he had the chance to cut him off, and he didn't. He was kind of coming at him from the side and chasing just a bit, and he got caught, got dropped, and got finished. This was a great performance.
Yeah, and it's hard to, complain too much if you're Cutelaba or if you're people in his corner, because most fighters can't fight well moving backwards. Magomed Ankalaev just happens to be one of those guys that can. And I think the bull rushing type of style that he has worked for him a lot. And he hasn't met a great defensive striker, a counter striker like Magomed yet. But this showed us that if Magomed can continue to do what he's doing, then he's going to be a real problem for that division as well, the light heavyweight division.
Oh, no question.
He's crisp, and he clearly throws with a lot of power. I mean, he got him Ion Cutelaba, he looks like a very good athlete, a high-level athlete. He looks strong. If he could and he moves well. He does that boxing, the Mike Tyson style, rolling and stuff, good head movement. He just always moves forward, and instead of there's like a reference that Wayne Gretzky said in hockey. He goes, I don't follow the puck. I go where the puck is headed.
Right.
And that's the same thing with fighting. You don't want to chase the puck around. You don't want to chase the fighter around. You want to go where the fighter's going and cut them off, and then you wind up boxing them out, and you use the octagon and your footwork to make the area in which you're fighting your opponent smaller and smaller and smaller until they have nowhere to go. And that's when somebody like Cutelaba's style will really work for them. But when you have somebody like Magomed Ankalaev just circling, and all of a sudden, every time that you try to bum rush him, he moves, and then he's got a whole new fresh set of floor to work with. So you couldn't really cut him off if you're chasing him. And I think that they knew that was going to happen. They had plenty of time, obviously, to study each other. Yeah. And I just think that Magomed came with a perfect game plan.
One thing that really impressed me in Magomed's performance and his skill set was his ability to fight moving backwards and his ability to strike moving backwards.
It's very hard.
He's very good backing up, and a lot of people who have never really trained any striking art forms kind of take that for granted, or maybe they just don't know how difficult it is to be shuffling your feet backwards with an opponent that's coming forward with an onslaught of strikes and be able to be effective and land shots. That's a very tough skill to develop. It takes a long time to develop, and I think Magomed did an excellent job of that.
Yeah, and it has to do a lot with when you're working punching or when you're working striking, you want to. It's human nature to throw things as hard as you possibly can. And generally when you're training, when you're hitting mitts, when you're hitting the bag, when you're even shadow boxing, you're moving forward. You're constantly moving forward. And what you have to realize is when you have to move backwards and you game plan to move backwards, you don't have to bring 100% of your power into these shots because you're relying on your opponent bringing 50% of the way and you kind of meeting them. When you have somebody that stays back and you have to chase them down, you got to bring everything you've got on the shots that you want to be detrimental to them. But when they're coming in on you, what you need to more focus on rather than throwing everything you've got in those shots is being ready to get out of the way.
Right.
So let them come in, hit them with enough to get their attention, and then get out and make sure you have some open space in the ring or the octagon, wherever you're fighting.
So, guys, were you as excited, and did the fights live up to their expectations for you all, just as they did for us? Just running through our predictions one more time. So, Nick went 5-1. I went 4-2. We both picked Hawes.
Yeah. First round knockout.
Yep. We both picked Lauren Murphy. You picked finish. I picked decision. You were right there. We both picked Magomed.
Finish.
We both picked Khabib.
Yep.
You picked Volkov. So that's your 5. I picked Walt Harris. And then Bobby Knuckles just messed both of us up.
Yeah, he threw us for a loop on that one.
4-2 and 5-1. We promised you guys we'd keep track, and that we are going to do, at least on the major cards. We're going to keep track on the pay-per-views, and we'll see. We'll see who, at the end of the year, who's got the best record. Maybe one of us will have to treat the other one to a dinner or something.
There we go. And betting with the Barnhills is something that we might need to turn into a segment. We might need to keep the tallies, keep the record for you guys, because we want to win you guys some money. If you like betting on fights, then I think you might need to listen to us, because it seems like we've got something good going.
For sure. But the story here tonight is just Khabib Nurmagomedov. It's excellence. It's dedication. It's love for one's family. Yeah. It's an amazing story. It's a feel-good story. You know, I hate to see him go, but I'm appreciative for the time he was here.
Yeah, and almost nobody gets to leave on top. But
that's it.
He has earned that right, and he did it the hard way. But he also did it his way.
That's
like
it.
Frank Sinatra said.
That's right, just like Sinatra. Guys, if you enjoyed the show, please like, comment, and subscribe. As always, check us out where you listen to podcasts. Yes. And enjoy the rest of your week, guys. We got a nice Saturday night ahead of us.
Yeah, who knows what we're going to get into.
Have a good one, guys. Take care.
Peace.